On this week's episode of the Connection Codes, we are going in session with Shawn and Michelle Gabie, who have been connection coders now for a couple of years. And they are talking about how it's the little pain points that can often lead to a disconnect for them if they don't process them quickly. So that's where we're going today. We're going to be talking about pain points with an incredible couple based in Canada, and we are so excited to dive in. So welcome to the Connection Codes. This is the podcast where we break open our emotions that take us from being disconnected to connected in our relationships and in ourselves. I am your host, Tara Wages, and joining me is marriage and family therapist, clinical sexologist, Dr. Glenn Hill, and his incredible wife, Phyllis. And together, they have founded the Connection Codes, which is the guide to human connection. And we're so glad you're here.
So, wow, what a special podcast today with our dear friends, Shawn and Michelle from Canada. And we always love it when we can ask friends to join us and to just talk about life, talk about their Connection Codes journey. So welcome, Shawn and Michelle. And we always love to start with just finding out a little bit about who you guys are and how. At what point did you join the Connection Codes family, and how did you even find out about the Connection Codes?
Well, it's so good to be on this podcast with you guys. Of course, Michelle and I are biased. You're some of our favorite people in the world.
Yes, for sure.
And I think we really, we're from Ottawa, Canada, capital of Canada. And my wife and I, we lead a church and do a lot of other things. But we discovered you guys and Dr. Glenn initially, probably I'd say almost 6 years ago now. And then, through that process, we've met Phyllis, of course, and we've been working with you guys, meeting with you guys for years now. And we're definitely so thankful. You guys have been
Absolutely.
A massive blessing to our lives, our marriage, our family, our leadership. It's Connection Codes touches all areas.
Yeah, parenting
of life.
every area, for sure.
So we're so thankful. We love you. And we're a Connection Code family.
Absolutely.
We're lifers for Connection Codes for sure.
Wow. And so you guys have children. How many children do y'all have?
We have 4 children. Our oldest is 13 and our youngest is 6. Yeah.
Love that.
So we're in the transitional stage right now.
Which is wonderful so far.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. So how does Connection Codes play out in y'all's family or your house?
So that's a great question. Of course, it starts with Michelle and I. We started doing it, like I said, years ago when Dr. Glenn introduced it to us. And
the kids picked it up as well. The kids keep us accountable.
For sure.
That's for sure. But yeah, we have our ups and downs with the Connection Codes. We miss a lot. But that's why we have you guys and other people in our lives that's done the Connection Codes to also keep us accountable when we're talking logistics and stuff like that.
Well, you guys always say you're pilgrims on a journey, and we would echo that in our life. We feel like we're way further
than we were
away from where you guys are at. Of course, you've been doing this for a lot longer. But our kids, I would say that our kids really have less of an issue doing it than we do. We struggle probably more just because we have baggage, we have stuff, we have history, life experience. Our kids, like you always say, they're just so in tune with their emotions so quickly. It's just natural, normal for them. And so I would say it plays out really powerfully in our kids. And then that is a constant encouragement for us to keep on our toes as a couple. And so, I think that, we're seeing the fruit of it in our family a lot. And we're super thankful for that.
Yeah. And we try to always emphasize that just like with health, any of us can probably, in an hour or two, read what is healthy physically as far as food consumption, exercise for the human condition, for the human experience. That does not mean we do it all the time. As far as I know, everybody eats stuff that you shouldn't put that in your body. I love peanut M&Ms. Focus on the peanut part because that's got to be good for you. No, peanut M&Ms are not good for you. So if it was just a matter of knowledge and information and content, we'd be all set. But the reality is it's it's a journey. You're continually going, oh shoot, I got to get back to sensibility. Eating things that are not best for me. I'm not exercising as much as I should or whatever. So the same is true emotionally. And that's one of the things we hear, probably one of the number one things we hear is just the people like, oh, we should know this by now. We should be all set. We should be perfect or whatever. And that's why we try to emphasize that when Phyllis and Glenn use the connection codes, they connect. When they don't, they don't, because it's based on the human condition. And Glenn and Phyllis don't get a free pass. I feel like maybe we should, because we wrote a book about it. But we don't. It's just the human condition. And it's just as true for us. Do we miss less frequently than most couples? Probably. We've really been diligent in this for a long time. But it's exactly the same for us as it is for Michelle and Shawn or anybody else on the planet.
Yeah, we've shared, a lot with you guys just about how there are moments we forget the connection codes, and it takes one of us getting back there as quickly as possible to reconnect. And, at times it is painful. And I think that's one of the things we hear so often is once you feel the deep connection that connection codes brings, then when you disconnect, it is like stunningly painful. And because when you have the glimpses of it and you get to live there, then when you don't, it just seems so heavy. And I know that's for us the same experience. I mean, when we have a disconnect, it just barely, there's like no oxygen left in the room, and it's so painful. And I know that I mean, you mentioned because of the past, right? So we all kind of have, sadly, trauma in our marriages, and if it's not even our marriages, there's relationships in our life that have hurt us, and so we have, I think you called it baggage, and it's kind of like, wow, those are the things that come back up, those are the triggers or the things that are just painful. And one of the things I think we were talking about with you guys a couple of weeks ago, and we kind of titled it, I don't know if you remember, but the dirty cup and the clean cup. And we kind of laughed about it, but it's so easy on a daily basis to get off track by something as little as a dirty cup. And so if you guys kind of did an overview, you can talk about that specifically, or just where you guys think you miss each other most often when it comes to connection.
Well, I think there's two great questions in that. I mean, I would say we miss a lot in logistics.
Yeah.
We get lost in the logistics and then miss each other emotionally. That's been a constant struggle, I think, for so many couples, probably, right? They're always trying to defend their way, defend their point.
Or explain their heart, even if it's well-intended, because they're like, oh, if they only knew I didn't mean that in a malicious way, and they just want to explain their heart. It's still, in the end, sometimes it dismisses how they feel. And you're just, talking logistics in the end for the other person. Right. And I have this habit, like that you brought up, that we talked about, that, I try to go to the gym in the mornings, and I always pre-make my pre-workout shake the night before. And so I have it in this cup, and I leave in the mornings and I drink my pre-workout shake, and I go to the gym, and I leave it often on the counter, and I do a little rinse. I don't wash it. I don't scrub it down, and I leave it on the counter with the intention of putting it in the dishwasher when I get home, or putting it away, or reusing it, for example. Yes.
And so that this came up last time. And so what happens for you when I leave the dirty cup on the counter?
I felt lots of, there was some sadness, like just because I had said like, oh, because I'm like, I have to use it sometimes. And so I'm like, I have to wash it before I have to use it, instead of just approaching the clean cup. And so I had asked him already before, and it just felt like I just felt unheard and dismissed. And I felt fear that I'm going to be the one always having to clean his cup, his blender cup, every time I want to use the blender, because so far that's how it looked like. So I had fear of this is not going to end. And I just had sadness for just not feeling heard or kind of respected in that area.
And can I just say that, like, for anybody listening, like, that probably sounds such a low level thing, right? And I think people maybe listening be like, why is that a big deal? Well, I think little things like this add up over time and create emotional dams.
Yeah.
And you may have 10,000 little cups, and all of a sudden a dam breaks, and you don't realize that those 10,000 cups were creating a dam because you didn't process it every day. And this is what we've learned with you guys. Like, before connection codes, we would have never processed that. It would have just been a constant, maybe a battle.
Said like a sharp comment, like,
yeah,
like wash your cup, like you left it on the thing, and then he would have went to the logistic right away. Well, I didn't have time, and then it would just be like,
and that would create an explosion.
Say, like, you didn't hear me, like why you did it again, like kind of jumping into like you're disrespecting me, or just kind of being like you left it again, like just jumping at each other.
Yeah, so all I have to say, like we've learned with you to like process through these things. Like I don't care if it's small. You talk about like level 1, level 10. Like we don't want it to turn into a 40-foot tornado or hurricane. So like these are the little things that turn into bigger things if we don't address them. And so it's tempting for me to be like, well, why is it a big deal? It's tempting for me, like anybody, to be like, I'll do it later. But it's a pain point for her. She might say it's a level 1 pain point, but it's still a pain point for her.
Right.
And so we have to learn to dance in those moments. Like you guys use that language and say, okay, like it's a pain point for you. I don't want this to turn into a level 10. So how can I assist in this process to love you and to like listen and be present with your emotion that you're feeling towards this issue that is clearly an issue.
So just in the last few weeks, how have you danced differently around the blender cup?
He's just always cleaned it. I've never seen it on the counter again since our last meeting.
Really?
Okay. Wow.
There's been lots of joy. I've never seen it dirty. Yes, but it needed you guys, like sometimes like the power of Glenn and Phyllis, we say, because I had said it, and you see there's that fine line, and that's what we were discussing, where he was like, I can't meet all your needs, right? Like there's tons of stuff that I'm going to do wrong. So he was like, I can't cater to all of it, which is true. But then there was the other side where it was like, well, this is disrespectful to me because you're the one who dirtied the cups, so you should clean it, right? If I've asked you, if I don't mind, like I'm the cleaner in the house, so of course, like I clean a lot of stuff that he makes a mess, but I do the deep cleaning. I don't mind. But if there's certain things on the daily that he can do, I'm like, so that was where we were not seeing each other, where he was like, well, I can't meet all of your needs, and I was like, well, this is disrespectful. And this is where you guys kind of helped and were to define that line. And I don't know if you want to elaborate on that.
Well, I do want to emphasize, a couple things. Number one, I just love it when I hear things about the connection codes that didn't occur to me. Because again, I'm just a pilgrim. I'm just learning myself, and we're the founders of the connection codes. We discovered it, but we don't know all the nuances of it. But the fact, Michelle, that you said, I feel fear of future pain. Which is true. That's what happens for us. So Michelle feels fear that there will be sadness again tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day about the cup. So that hadn't even occurred to me that, there's fear in that for her as well as pain, but also fear of pain in the future. So that's just really good. Shoot, now I forgot the other thing.
Well, I guess I have a question, Shawn. A couple of questions. Like, what was... I think we've already said, wow, impressed that this has been a big shift in the last few weeks. But
that was the thing.
What has that been for you, or what made the difference, or what shifted it from where you were at the beginning of May and where you are now with it?
I think like having it come up in the context with like relationally with you too, and then hearing like another side of the story, another side of perspective that I maybe didn't have. Like I wasn't able to fully be present emotionally in that type of a scenario. To me, I'm like brushing it off. I'm like, why is it a big deal? Which is like anti-connection codes, right? And there was no selflessness in my approach. I think the core of the connection codes is you have to be selfless because you got to be able to sit with somebody and not take it personally just realize this is what's happening for her. I'm not going to fight this back. Like, it takes selflessness, in my opinion, to walk in the connection codes, right? To just not be selfish and trying to justify all the time, because justification can feel selfish, right? So it took you guys to really help me see the other side of it. And that's why there's so much value in what you guys do, your practice, your professional practice, because we need people sometimes to help us see different, to see our blind spots. And I just think about like how many couples like are living in pain because of small things like this and don't even realize
Or
it.
even big things that are similar to this, but it's just because your body doesn't know the difference, right? You're saying like it doesn't know like if it's a big cut or a small cut. Pain is pain, sadness is sadness. It doesn't matter exactly. Your body can't, it just processes it the same.
Yeah. Yeah, and you think about, if you get a splinter under your fingernail, what percentage of your body mass is that? I mean, it's 0%, it's 0.00 something. But all of a sudden, the world stops. You're like, oh my gosh, I got a splinter under my fingernail.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, Michelle, don't worry about it. It's 0% of your body.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. No, it matters to her. And she wants to get that splinter out. That's the whole focus in that moment. So any of, pain experience is the same way. I remember what I was going to say earlier, just that, and Michelle, I adore you. I think you're remarkable, but you're also a very dynamic person, which is not a compliment. It's just a description. And I could see Michelle presenting this logistically to say, oh, I can't believe that you leave this cup dirty. You should wash it. It's your cup. You get it dirty. You should wash it, or whatever, which that's logistical. That never connects anybody ever. Now, Shawn, I'm speaking for you, Shawn, which is dangerous, but now Shawn feels attacked. He feels criticized. He feels, put down. He feels attacked. So now Michelle looks like a wolf in Shawn's brain. Connection codes protocol. It's tough to hug a wolf, and it's very difficult. It's dangerous to dance with one. So if Michelle is able just to convey the core emotion and just go, I feel some sadness in this. Oh, and there's fear of future pain as well, babe. And then Shawn does the 3 phrases, follows her energy till the end. Then he goes, so babe, what do you need? And she's like, could you wash this? Let's figure out a system here. And I think we'd even talked about the possibility of just buying another cup or whatever, but they partner together in the experience to figure out what would work. I also want to mention, and we adore the two of you and you adore us, and I'm glad, and that's wonderful, but it's not really a Phyllis and Glenn issue. This is teamship. Every individual, every couple, every family needs teamship. The opposite of that is what we call psychological isolation. And Michelle and Shawn are incredibly gifted people, brilliant, talented, blah, 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 but they need outside perspective. And it's not because they're dumb. It's not, well, Shawn and Michelle, they're this special case that, they need help. Everybody needs help. And one of the things we've done, especially in Western civilization, is we don't have that mentality. We even have phrases, like, well, you don't want to air your dirty laundry. Well, that's mind your own business. And so we even think that way. And so then Phyllis and Glenn live drowning for years and years and years. And there's nobody that's partnering with us in life, no teamship. We didn't have that before we married. We didn't have that after we married for a very long time. And it's even considered kind of weird that we would be open and vulnerable and authentic. And so people just drown continuously. That you may have heard me say before, it's one of my many, many pet peeves. When we were first married, a number of years into our marriage, we would hear that, this other couple is divorcing. And for a while there, it was all of our childhood friends, the people we grew up with, the people that we knew. And we go, oh, they say, oh, whatever, the Johnsons are divorcing. And then somebody else would go, oh, they had such a great marriage. And people genuinely believed that.
Wow.
They believed that on Tuesday, the Johnsons had a great marriage, and on Wednesday, they filed divorce papers. And I can remember even then, and this is back when in my 20s, and I was thinking, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't make sense to me. We were faith-based then, and people would always attribute it to a spiritual thing that, Satan just tricked them Wednesday morning, over coffee. All of a sudden, their marriage was doomed. And Tuesday, good, awesome. And of course, over the years, as I researched more and more, I found out that's not true at all. They were just inauthentic. They were just hiding what was happening with them.
So circling back around, I think that, and I appreciate so much y'all's vulnerability and just sharing. And everyday occurrence and a pain point that was happening in your relationship. And I know that for me, and I believe this was maybe last year, if not the summer before, that our oldest daughter, Echo, came to me and said, what are your pain points, Mom? And I thought that was the strangest question, and I didn't really understand it. And we had talked a lot about it. Like, she kind of drew an image of a scale, and she's like, one side is joy and one side is pain. And if the pain in your life is greater than the joy in your life, then your life is really out of balance.
Yeah.
And I understood that. I was like, okay, I can understand that. And, for me, though, I really sadly was raised for, this was, I'm 60 now. So we're talking late 50s before I came to really understand that I viewed pain points as just something you endure. Like, almost kind of like, as a Christian, you just endure pain. And there was some like one incident in our life that was a pretty big one, and yet it had to do with another family. And I just thought, well, as Christians, you just endure that. You just endure the pain of that relationship. And it wasn't even like these people were family or anything. Like, there was no reason for me to endure, but I just thought I was supposed to. And once I expressed the pain of it, everyone in my family were just almost shocked that I was continuing to be in relationship with this family and continuing actually to serve this family. But it was super draining. Like, it was really draining me incredibly. Yeah. Well, then when I kind of went down this road, this journey, that's where the shower story came about. And I think we've done other podcasts where we've mentioned the shower story, where I was not able to easily change the nozzle that, I get in the shower usually after Glenn, and he's got the nozzle on a jet setting and it's facing the door. And so I would always get water on the floor. But as a good Christian wife, you just think, oh, I'm just being nitpicky. I'll just endure the pain. But he never knew. Like, I never said to him the sad that I felt every time I got in the shower. And it's been such a huge thing to realize the faultiness in that thinking. But what's sad is that I've had many conversations since then where I try to describe, like, if you step on a nail, you say, ow. So you say the pain in the moment. I've had actually many conversations, and it's actually been with women. I don't know that, not intentionally, but I just haven't had these conversations with men. And I've been shocked how many Christian women say to me, oh, no, I step on a nail and I don't say, ow, that is not proper. I keep my pain to myself. I don't tell my husband. And it's just so sad to me, but I get it because that's how I was raised. And so, going back to the cup, the pain that was every day for Michelle, it is such a valid thing to be able to say that to you, Shawn. And it's not a how big, how small. It's just simply a, oh my goodness, every time I see that dirty cup on the counter, I feel pain. And you have the right to say, yeah, it's painful for me. There's a sadness, a hurt. And I love, Shawn, that you were able to just hear it for what it was, instead of, because I think that other people, especially non-connection coders, could say, Michelle, just get over it. Like, you just need to absorb that pain, and you need to just serve, and you need to be a good wife, and you need to just clean the cup and never say anything. And that's not true. That causes.
I did at first. At first, I said nothing for the longest time.
Yeah.
I didn't say anything until then there's a switch that goes, and then you're like.
Well, that's the problem, is now it is dammed up so much.
Oh, yeah.
There's no way that Michelle is going to connect deeply with Shawn when she's experiencing that pain every day.
Right.
And there's going to be something, and I'm not talking about a huge, we're filing divorce papers on Wednesday because of the cup, but it's just a pain experience.
Right.
And so now Shawn has become a pain source, not on purpose. I'm not talking about Shawn at all. I'm just talking about Michelle's experience. And with the shower, we realized that We had lived at this property over 3,000 days at that point. So this has happened over 3,000 times.
A long time.
Never said ow.
Wow.
And stunned me. And when she finally said it that day, and it occurred to me 2 or 3 minutes later, I'm like, babe, wait, how many times does this happen? How often? She goes, every day. And I was so overwhelmed. I felt so much guilt and shame. I'm like, wait, babe, you felt pain in this? And I'm good at math. So I was like, over 3,000 times. And of course, she's not that great at math. And she's like, I don't know, whatever. Just every day, whatever the math on that is. And I said, babe, I'll break through a wall for you. You just have to tell me. I had no idea. And if you had asked me the day before, Phyllis feels pain every day when she gets in the shower. And I'd be like, no, she doesn't. That's absurd. Where'd you get that silly idea? But it was true. And again, we're not talking about death pain, but pain.
But it actually turns into, I would like to say, death pain. Like little things. You think about if we had a little pebble in our shoe and we walked 10 miles with a little pebble in our shoe, we would do so much damage to our foot. It would be crazy how much damage we would do. And I think that when you don't process pain, it eventually does so much damage to yourself. Like, and the damage it does to yourself then radiates outward, and then it affects, the relationship with the closest people to you. And it's interesting, Michelle, because I think that oftentimes in households, we make sideways comments instead of just saying, I feel so much pain, or just the word sad, like, oh, sad. We make sideways comments about things that bother us.
Yeah. And so, yes, absolutely. And I think another thing that came in related to that in the session is that at a point I was using, I feel sad, or I feel this, and I still wasn't getting the outcome. And I think that's where we came to the point where I was like, where is that line where you let the person process the emotion and you don't have to cater to all of their little needs, especially if somebody's like extra pickier than the other or extra OCD than the other. And then when is it the time to do something about it? Because I think we came to the point where I was expressing the emotion and I still wasn't getting anything out of it. And his response was, well, there's always going to be something that I can do better, right? And I think for a lot of people watching, especially if you're newly married and you do things differently, where is it? How do you navigate, when you do something about it and when it's okay to just let the person process the emotion and just dance with them on that?
Yeah. Well, and that is the dance. It's an unanswerable question because every human's unique. Therefore, every couple is unique. Every experience is unique. But for Phyllis and me, our goal is to process literally 100%, exactly 100% of what happens for us. And there are a tremendous number of things that we just dance through. One example of that, it's funny to me that this is not a thing in my life, but if left on my own, I would never make my bed. I just think that's a silly process. What's the point? You're just going to get back in it. High level of OCD, you'd think that I would be, obsessed with making the bed, but I'm not. Phyllis loves having the bed made. Big joy point for her. When she walks to our bedroom and the bed is made, it's a joy experience for her.
Huge.
I make our bed every day. I don't have to. I do it because I'm pushed by joy for her joy. But if you watch me make the bed, literally every day, I start making the bed. I'm like, oh, sad, pain. Literally. And then I go, and joy for Phyllis's joy. This matters to her.
Is this all by yourself while you're doing it, or is this in front of Phyllis?
No, if she's around,
I'm usually not there when you make
it's by myself, but I'm just processing through the emotion that I'm having. My world record is 43 seconds. I can make our bed in 43 seconds. It usually takes me about a minute, 10, minute 15. So it's not like it's a big, it's not an hour and a half project. I just don't love making the bed, but she's so important to me. She's so valuable to me. And I know that it will be a joy experience for her later in the day when she walks into our bedroom. So that the joy for her joy, is that motivating factor. But it's still a sad experience for me every day. And again, I'm talking about for a minute that it takes me to make the bed. But I don't have to do that. And Phyllis has never demanded, insisted that I make the bed, but she's so important to me that I can do that. Now, there are other things that she's not going to do. She opens cereal boxes very incorrectly. She has never learned the true doctrine, God's way of opening. And I've given up thinking that she ever will. It's just a spiritual issue.
Well, I do think, though, it is, Michelle, I'm so glad you circled back around, because, for example, I live with someone that deals with high level of obsessive compulsive disorder, which is OCD. And you kind of go, well, okay, how do y'all manage that? Because there is a lot of pain points in Glenn's everyday journey for himself. And yet it is kind of one of those where you do navigate, am I creating the pain, or is he just experiencing the pain? And for example, we laugh and we joke about cereal boxes. Well, it's funny, several things. Number one, I don't eat cereal, so I don't ever really have to deal with a cereal box. But our grandchildren come over, and that is something if they spend the night, they'll eat cereal. But we have learned to kind of Glenn has his own systems that bring a lot of order and peace to his routines, because that's part of the obsessive compulsive stuff. And so he has his own cabinet and his own area for his cereal and his bowl and his spoon. And there's very much order to that. And it's not in the general kitchen with all the rest of the stuff. And so we have learned how to make things simpler for Glenn. But there are times when, for example, the light switches in our house, that's for him a pain point that he would like for them all to be the correct way, whatever that means. Yep. And which I think that means they all look the same. I don't know. Anyway,
off or on?
I don't know. Both. There's something.
Well, we have three-way switches, where there's two switches that control the same light, and they should both be down. Because, and again, you think about the disorder of the psyche, because for me, it is a pain experience for the light switches. Because if they have to stay up all night, they're going to be exhausted tomorrow. And that's literally the thought process for me, which I'm more than delighted to go, that doesn't make any sense. Light switches don't care. But it's a pain experience. For me, it's a very, very much a sad experience. So, but Phyllis does not have to do that. She does not have to. And she spent much of our marriage trying to stay 10 feet ahead of me and fixing everything. And it was exhausting for her. Period. It was exhausting, but especially because it's not organic within her. She doesn't care about the cardboard on a cereal box. She doesn't care about a light switch. None of that matters to her. There's nothing inside of her. So she doesn't have to do all of the things in life. You may have heard me talk about my Yeti cup. The straw is lined up with the logo the way it's supposed to be. That's why they put the logo on there, so you can make sure the straw is lined up perfectly. But she doesn't have to do that. And she spent much of our marriage thinking that she did, because it would be so overwhelming for me if she didn't. And I was a jerk. I mean, it was so sad. I was so unkind because I was overwhelmed. I didn't understand. There's a way pre-connection goes. I didn't understand what was happening for me. It's just a pain experience. If my straw is not lined up with the logo, I just feel sadness.
Right.
And when it is lined up, I feel joy. I'm not trying to feel joy. I'm not trying to feel sad. I just do. But she doesn't have to do anything about that. Now I have the right of request. I have the right to ask her. But I very, very rarely do that.
Well, and
so what do you say? What do you say to the listener that says, okay, so Dr. Glenn and Phyllis, where's the line between the difference between the cup, the dirty cup, and the light switch? What would you say to them?
Well, I think that is why we're even talking about this, right? Because this is to me, the everyday life, the nitty gritty, all those little things that add up in a relationship when you're living in close proximity of each other. And we had another really great podcast. Elijah Runyon was on as a guest with his wife, and he just shared, because he deals with pretty high levels too of obsessive compulsive disorder. And he would come home from work and he would, no matter how much his wife and children would create order and cleanliness, he would always come in and kind of just see it as not there, not the perfection he needed it to be. And so he would start moving things very slightly into the right little space, or and what he realized is it was really hurting his relationship and his connection with his wife and kids. And he said, I don't want this. I don't want to live in disconnection. They are too important to me. And a lot of it goes back to being able to simply process the pain. So you've heard us say, Glenn feels a lot of pain about cracks on a sidewalk. And I don't even notice them. And I don't try to make sure we never go anywhere where they have cracks or where they have cobblestones. He just processes the pain. He can out loud say, oh, pain. But it's not for me to have to change it. And I think part of what we talked about with you guys specifically about the cup was the idea that, well, Shawn, you dirtied the cup. So yeah, I think it's reasonable for you to clean the cup. But then we also suggested, why not get another one? And that would be Michelle's. And then she would never have to touch your cup. So we did talk about what are some solutions, right? And I think that's what we've developed in our house. And, our grandkids love their papa, and they know his cereal is off limits. But it's funny because sometimes they'll go, Papa, can I have a little bit of your cereal? And it's so precious because there is a understanding of the things that are painful for Glenn, but no, it's not like we're all frozen and we can't go near it. It's more that we just make space for his pain. And so, if you live in a household where there's a lot of those kinds of things, it's really important to be able to, for both sides, to be able to process their experience. And it's important for Michelle to process her pain. But then, Shawn, if the list is hundreds long, like it was for us in our early married life, I couldn't keep up. And so that created a ton of fear for me, pain for me. And I was walking on eggshells. And the list, I tried, but I couldn't get it. So we sure needed help back then. We needed the connection codes back in our early years, that's for sure. And we didn't have it. And so it was very dysfunctional. And, that's where the importance is being able to express what's happening for both of you and making space for that, which is, to me, so beautiful of what y'all have done just in the last few weeks, as far as this one pain point. Shawn, you shifted something where you went, okay, I can spend 60 seconds extra or 2 minutes extra and just change my pattern, change your habit so that I can relieve this one pain point that Michelle was experiencing every day.
And if I could just say this, prior to the connection codes, prior to meeting you both, I would have always said to people, I would pride myself, I speak on behalf of me, that we're great at communicating. We're great communicators. But then when I met you guys, I realized that we were horrible at connecting emotionally in our communication. So in our communication, we were disconnecting in our emotions. And so I would say this, to all the non-connection coders out there that are listening to this, when I was in your shoes, if I was to watch this interview and hear myself or watch this couple here, I'm pointing at right now, share about a dirty cup, I'd be like, what is wrong with you? Get over it. What is your problem? But we were eating pizza. We met you guys, we started eating Wagyu steak. When all you've eaten is pizza, you don't know what you're missing until you touch the Wagyu. And I feel like the connection codes was like the Wagyu. It's like in marriage, we were eating the pizza. That's all we were familiar with. You introduced us to a whole new food line. And we're like, what have we been missing? And so that's why we can dance with the cup thing and realize that although it seems small to the average person, it's what becomes big later on.
Yeah.
We've only learned to be able to see it that way through eating the Wagyu of the connection codes with you guys. And so I would just say to all the listeners out there that are non-connection coders, I was in your shoes being like, what is wrong with this couple? They're super dysfunctional. That's what I would have said. Right. But now I'm like, no, but we've tasted what could be.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's why this is a conversation.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Love that so much. Well, man, it's been so special having you guys on. And of course, we always love when we get to be with you, and we are hoping to get to see you in person
Yes.
the
Yes.
fall.
One day.
So,
Yes.
so
Soon,
that
no, for
is
sure.
going to be so exciting. And the way we always end our podcast is we do the core emotion wheel. So would you guys be willing to do the core emotion wheel today?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Who goes first?
Ah,
Why don't you guys tell us who's going to go first?
I'll go
You
first.
tell us who goes first.
Flip a
Okay,
coin.
go.
I'll go first.
Yeah. Shawn, will you go first?
Okay, I'll go first. Okay. Well, I feel joy that we were able to move through this dirty cup scenario with Dr. Glenn and Phyllis, and be at this point where we can talk about it.
Mhm.
Wow.
I feel guilt that you probably felt pain for a long time about it, but didn't say anything. I feel fear that I might leave the cup on the counter again in the near future.
Mm.
I feel shame that the entire wheel so far is about the dirty cup, because I don't know what else to say on the spot. I'm thinking through it. I feel sad that we're not further along on the journey sometimes, like in connecting the way that we could. I feel sometimes lonely in the reality that I forget that other people probably feel the same thing about stuff like this and don't share it, but I feel lonely sometimes thinking that like we're the only ones experiencing this. I feel hurt. Hurt's the one I'm missing, right? Hurt.
Hurt and anger.
Probably a little hurt initially when like that dirty cup scenario like became a thing, and how we disconnected on that until we met with Dr. Glenn and Phyllis, and we were able to like see it. I was able to see it from a different perspective. I feel a little bit of anger that we've not ever actually seen Dr. Glenn and Phyllis in person because of circumstances.
Yeah.
The truth, I do. I can't wait to see you guys.
Thank you. Amazing.
Anger towards the government. Anyways, go ahead.
So you're doing it around the cup?
I don't know. I just it was in the moment. I mean, like we don't have a lot of time on this to think through things. So,
okay. Well, I felt fear about doing this podcast. I definitely felt shame after processing the fear with you guys. I felt with shame of like, oh my goodness, what's wrong with me? Why do I feel fear on this? I felt I feel lots of joy now that I'm doing it, and feel joy that the cup situation is just because that's a reflection of many other things, right? That's to come. Like we had a breakthrough. I feel joy. It's not necessarily about the cup. I feel joy about the breakthrough of the mindset and the heart behind what was happening with the cup, right? Feel joy that. I just been feeling lonely lately. Just I don't know what the loneliness is. Maybe just feel like I need some sort of adventure or break or vacation, and just feel lonely and doing the day-to-day lately. Feel a bit of sadness in that as well. I feel hurt, and then I feel hurt less.
I can conjecture, but I'm not allowed to, right?
Oh, conjecture. Oh yeah, I felt a bit hurt when I expressed the fear this morning, and you were quick to just hear me out, but you
Mhm.
try to encourage in your way that felt like talking logistics.
Mm.
Guilt, shame.
Yes. What is there another one missing? Yes, eh?
You say
I
joy?
said, I said joy. No, I said joy.
Oh, you did.
Anger? Did you do anger? I got lost.
I feel anger. Sometimes I feel angry at the thought that we've allowed so many disconnect to happen over petty things, that you're like, man, like I tell our kids, like I already told my kids they're seeing you before they get married with their spouse. So they get this foundation so they can avoid a lot of.
So you better not retire. That's the thing.
Yeah, you have to wait.
You have to wait till our kids are done.
No, but you guys are multiplying yourself, so which is good.
It's
good.
true.
So
It's true.
yeah.
16 years of marriage. We're learning.
Yes.
Yeah, amazing.
So
Thank you,
proud of you
Michelle.
guys. Thank you
Yes.
so much for joining us today and just being open and honest. I know often, I think almost all of our guests say, oh, fear of this. And, we get that. So thank you so much for today and just vulnerability. And we love you guys.
Thank you guys. We love you.
It
Thanks
was fun after all.
Thank
And
you.
we always end with,
Yeah. Just like with Michelle and Shawn, we want everybody to know you need this.
you deserve this.
So
let's do
this.
this.
Shawn and Michelle, thank you so much for coming on this week and sharing your story and being vulnerable, because I know that you are not alone in experiencing this, and so many couples are going to relate. We absolutely love having in-session podcasts because it creates this realness to what we're all experiencing. So when we're in our own homes, we're like, oh, it's not just me. Shawn and Michelle also experienced this. Wes and Tira experienced this. There are so many other couples that are going through what we are going through. And here at the Connection Codes, we want you to know that not only are you not alone, but we have tools that can help you overcome and connect quickly. If you have not already experienced one of our master classes, I encourage you to start with our Foundations course. This is the course that teaches you the language of connection through emotion. This is the course that helps you connect in a way that you never have before, so you can stop tiptoeing around these trigger topics and around the pain points that have been tripping you up before. As you heard from Shawn and Michelle, it is a process, and it is something that we are all having to unlearn so we can relearn the language that our brains were created for. So there's a link in our show notes where you can go and enroll today in our Foundations course. Use discount code PODCAST to get an extra 20% off of your course. And I really hope that you are enjoying these in-session podcasts, because this summer we are going to be sharing several with you. We thought summer was just the perfect time to bring on some more real couples. And so we're going to have some series going on. In July, we're going to be talking about parenting. And we have several couples that are going to be here in the next few weeks just sharing their stories with you. So we are super, super excited for more of these in-session podcasts. And if you have a question, if you have something that you are struggling with in your home or in your relationship and would love to come on to do a in-session with Dr. Glenn and Phyllis, please reach out. I know in some of the earlier episodes, Wes and I would come on together and we would think that we'd had it figured out, but then Dr. Glenn and Phyllis would blow our minds with something that we had not even realized ourselves. So they are so helpful, not only for our listeners, but also for you to work through and get on the other side of your struggle. Thank you again. Let's do this.